Hey guys, today in Art Club with Miss Burford, we're going to create Van Gogh inspired pumpkin pictures. You will need either poster or acrylic paints in these colours, a sheet of paper, some paintbrushes in various sizes and a pencil. To start with, draw a selection of different sized pumpkins at the bottom of your piece of paper. So if you look at my piece of paper, it's landscape, just like the picture of Starry Night is landscape. And then with these pumpkins, the best way to draw them is like the letter M. And so you've got that nice little dip in the centre, which is where your pumpkin stalk will go. And they're a bit rounded at the bottom rather than having a straight leg on the M. You notice with all my pumpkins, you can't see the base of them. So you'll want to do the same thing so you can only see about half of each pumpkin. If you make a mistake, like I did my dip too deep on the one pumpkin, don't worry about rubbing it out. You're going to be painting over it, so there's no need to worry about the line showing through too much. Keep going until you've filled the whole bottom section of your paper. Then behind your pumpkins, you're going to draw a castle, like what you get in a cartoon, where the castle is wider at the top than it is at the bottom. So as your castle gets further down the paper towards the pumpkins, it's going to get narrower. So this is to represent the cypress trees that are in the painting of Starry Night. So that black silhouette on the left-hand side of the painting. To create the castle turrets, you just need to draw 3 triangles and then some rectangles that then get narrower as they get closer to the pumpkins. And then add some arched windows on each turret. And back to the pumpkins, we're going to add some detail. So the ridges that you get on the pumpkin skin, we're going to add those. And you'll want to draw some lines from the centre and to follow the curve shape of the pumpkin. And as you get towards the centre, the lines get straighter. Moving on to the next step, you'll want to fill the sky, so everywhere around the pumpkins and the castle, you'll want to fill the sky with a lovely, vibrant dark blue. Your blue paint should be a lot better than mine. I bought this new blue paint, a new selection of paints, and they were not as vibrant as I thought they were going to be, and I had to go over this with another layer after to make it as blue as I needed it to be. I was much happier with a second coat of paint on mine. You shouldn't have to do that. As long as you've got good paint, you'll be fine. Then whilst the blue paint is drying, you can move on to the pumpkins, and you'll want another solid colour, so you've got solid blue in the sky, and then you just want a solid orange on each pumpkin at the moment. We'll be adding details a bit later on with highlights and shadows and different things like that. Next, use some black paint to fill in the spooky castle in the background so that you have that silhouette that's just like on the original Starry Night picture. Only thing that is going to be different, you're going to leave the arched windows white for now because we're going to paint those a bit later on. For the last part of our base layers of paints, you will need a nice dark brown for the pumpkin stalks. So in the time that we've been painting everything else, your sky has had time to dry, and we can go back to the sky to create the texture that Van Gogh had in his sky. So if you look, he's got some lovely swirls, and have a real good look at his brush strokes. Try and replicate the starry sky in your picture. So using the same colours of whites and yellows, I used the white broken up in the brush strokes that I could see to create a circular moon. And then I added some slightly longer brush strokes, creating these swirls and free flowing shapes in the sky, just like what I could see. That was my interpretation of the painting. Use a mixture of white and yellow brush strokes, and you might have a more yellow sky than I do. or an even whiter sky than I've got, but I just tried to balance out what I could see, and I just really wanted to keep the moon white and prominent in the sky, but fill up the whole sky with all those stars and all those shapes that you can see on that sky on the original painting. When you've completed the sky, and whilst we're still using yellow, you can go ahead and add some yellow windows. So fill in those white gaps and they're going to look like lights on in your spooky castle. Just like before, we left the sky to dry whilst we were working on other parts of the painting. Your pumpkins should now be dry and we can start working on these. So we're not having to wait for drying times whilst we're doing this painting. Then create a golden brown colour using brown and yellow for the ridges of your pumpkins. So the lines that you created earlier, which reflect the curves of the pumpkin, you're going to go over these again with this brown so it hides your pencil lines. These lines should really stand out against the orange background now. Add some yellow paint to the right hand side of your pumpkins, or whichever side your light source is coming from. So my moon is coming from the right, and just using the curves to follow, do some yellow lines around the brown lines that you've just done. That created highlights, so with highlights comes shadows to create some contrast, and to create the shadows use the same brand that you use for the stalk of your pumpkins on the opposite side to where you did highlights. So my highlights were on the top right hand side of the pumpkin, so your shadows are going to be on the left hand side and possibly lower down. And to really create some contrast, you can then go even darker by adding some black shadows near your dark brown that you just did. So these can go on the lower parts of the pumpkin, and try and do it in the same lines that you've been doing, following the curve of the pumpkin, and you'll see that it really brings out the shape of the pumpkin. Now that you've gone darker on the shadow side, you now need to go lighter on the highlight side where you've done the yellow. So just a little bit, add a little bit of white to highlight those bits that are in the moonlight. Add highlights to the stalks on the top bit facing the moon and down the right hand side. You can see that your pumpkins are really becoming 3D now and picking up that light from the sky. Again, create some contrast on the stalks by having some dark shadow on the opposite side to the white highlights, so on the bottom left hand edge of your stalks. Just add black paint. Leave to dry and you have your very own Halloween inspired Starry Night picture. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more art lessons like this on a Monday and other art related content every now and then. See you next week for more art with Miss Burford.